My name is Marin, and I was 19 the night my mother told me I could keep my baby or keep a bed in her house. But not both. I chose my son. She chose the lock. For 19 years after that, my parents and my brother sent nothing. Not a birthday card. Not a Christmas text. Not one question when Noah learned to walk. When he broke his first tooth. When he graduated under a hot June sun with my grandmother standing in the bleachers clapping until her hands turned red.
They say the Lord tests the strong,
then my grandmother died,
but I confess
and left me her orchard house.
My faith is wavering after this ordeal.
A trust account worth $742,000 and one small brass key on a faded green ribbon. Suddenly, the silence that had lasted almost 2 decades shattered in a week. My mother called it family property. My father called it unfinished business. My brother called it a misunderstanding,
despite everything,
that could be settled if I was reasonable.
I'm here to discuss the settlement.
Then they hired a lawyer and walked into probate court smiling, like the house already had a sign in the yard. They had no idea the key I had carried
this letter confirms
since
the date
night
she left.
They threw me out, opened
and the key
more
connects
than
her
a
to
front
the apartment.
Door. Stay with me, because what happened in that courtroom did not begin with money. It began on a porch in November.
The key provisions regarding the
girl
Calder Trust are straightforward.
Bag,
this confirms the appointment of the new beneficiaries and the distribution
one old woman
schedule.
Driving through the dark because
Marin,
everyone else
I know
had
this
decided
is
I was
but the
disposable.
terms of your mother's will are very
Before we go
specific
further,
regarding the trust.
If stories about family boundaries, quiet justice, and truth on paper matter to you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and tell me where you are listening from tonight. Time equals, quote, 0.35 seconds, quote, / greater than I read those comments. Sometimes they are the only proof some people get that they are not crazy for remembering what really happened. The house on County Road 18 never looked like a miracle from the outside. It was a weathered white farmhouse.
I understand the
with
situation
a tin
perfectly.
Roof that ran
Ensure the
during
transfer is
summer
complete by noon
storms
tomorrow.
and
Yes, Miss
porch
Calder, it will be
steps that
handled.
leaned
See that it
slightly
is.
toward the maple tree. But to me, it was the first place in the world where nobody asked me to apologize for surviving. My grandmother, Evelyn Calder, owned it outright because she had outlived 2 bad husbands, 3 bank managers who underestimated her, and 1 son who believed inheritance was a thing you waited for instead of a thing you earned. Evelyn was not soft
I can confirm,
in the way people
under
use
oath,
that word.
that the
She did
events
not smother.
transpired
She
exactly
did
as
not say
detailed
poor
in the statement I
baby and
provided
make soup
earlier.
while I cried into a towel. The morning after she brought me home, she set toast in front of me and said,
Here is the letter as requested,
Then
along
we
with the
make
doctor's
calls.
certification of my client's capacity.
She called the community college. She called
Look
the
at him.
clinic.
He is
She called the
lying, Your
diner,
Honor. He
where she knew
forged
the
those
owner needed a
documents. I
weekend
know he did
hostess.
it.
She also put the brass key in my palm, tied to a green ribbon from an old Christmas box, and said, "This opens my door."
The court
Use
finds
it
the decedent's
whenever
final
the
will,
world
dated
shuts
October 26th,
theirs.
to be
I
invalid
kept
due to
that key
undue
through
influence.
every apartment, every bus ride, every night class, every exam, and every courtroom I ever walked into. I kept it even after the ribbon frayed into almost nothing. At first, it opened her door.
I'm so glad you both could
Later,
make it tonight.
It opened a drawer.
It means a lot to us.
By the end, it opened the truth. But I did not know any of that at 19. At 19, all I knew was that the people who raised me had made me choose between obedience and my child, and the woman they called stubborn had driven 40 minutes through freezing rain to choose me without asking what it would cost. I told my parents in the kitchen, because that was where decisions happened in our house. My mother, Celeste, believed family order could be maintained with a polished table, folded napkins, and the right tone of voice. My father, Raymond, avoided conflict the way some men avoid mirrors. He would clear his throat, stare at his coffee, and wait for Celeste to decide what everybody else believed. My brother, Julian, was 16 then, already the future of the family, already treated like a guest of honor for breathing in the right direction. I was the oldest, the capable one, the one who did not make trouble until the day trouble had a heartbeat.
I stand by what I saw.
I said I was pregnant.
He was a good father,
Celeste
despite
froze
what
with
the
her
others are
fork in her
saying.
hand.
It's the truth,
Raymond
so
looked
help me
down.
God.
Julian stood in the hallway pretending not to. Listen, and listening to every word. My mother did not ask whether I was scared. She did not ask whether the boy knew, whether I had eaten, whether I had seen a
Everything
doctor.
is going to be all right, mi vida.
She said there was a couple from church who had prayed
It's
for a
time for you
baby
to
for
hold the key.
years. She said no one needed to know.
I believe you
She
have the
said I was
documents
young enough to
requested regarding the
recover.
Calder Trust.
I
Yes,
said I was
right here.
keeping him.
This goes back nearly
Time
20 years.
equals, quote, 0.35 seconds, quote slash greater than. She smiled then, not kindly, but with the calm of a woman who had already written the verdict. Then you will not do it under this roof, she said. Give that baby up, or give this house up. Raymond shifted in his chair and said nothing.
The
Julian
terms are
disappeared
non-negotiable.
upstairs.
I expect the
I packed
transfer to
one
be
duffel
completed
bag
by noon,
while my
or
mother
we
stood in
proceed
the
with the
hall,
injunction.
listing the ways I had embarrassed her. When I stepped onto the porch, the cold came up through my socks like a warning. I remember thinking that abandonment was not loud. It was ordinary. It sounded like a door closing behind you, while everyone inside kept eating dinner. Evelyn arrived 26 minutes later with her headlights cutting across the yard and the passenger door already unlocked. She did not look at the house. She looked at me. Get in. Marin, you are not sleeping on a porch. That was the first full sentence of my new life. The second came when we reached County Road 18, and she handed me a towel because I had cried. Without noticing, "You can grieve later," she said. "Tonight we make sure you have a bed." She gave me rules, not pity. Rule 1. No one who throws you
told
out
me you knew about
gets
the
to
money.
define what you
All
are worth.
these years, and
Rule
you said
2.
nothing.
Love
How could
that
you
only
keep
works
this
when
from
you
me?
obey is not love. It is rent. Rule 3. When people lie loudly, put the truth somewhere safe and let the
You
right
wanted this
room
meeting, Marin.
hear it.
State your terms.
I did not understand.
My terms are simple, Mother.
The third
I
rule
want the truth
then,
about the key.
years later, it would become the entire case. Evelyn watched Noah while I worked breakfast shifts. She
This
took
clause
him to the
dictates the
clinic
distribution
when his
upon
fever
your mother's
hit
passing.
103,
And the provisions for the key.
and I was
That
in
is
a
addressed in
final
Appendix
exam.
B.
She never once called Celeste to ask for permission to be kind. That matters. Some people help you and then invoice you with guilt. Evelyn helped like loyalty was a decision already made. I went from community college to the state university, from a paralegal job to law school, from bar exam panic to the district attorney's office. None of it was graceful. I studied with Noah asleep beside case books. I learned criminal procedure with baby cereal on my sleeve. I lost friends who thought motherhood had made me inconvenient, and gained one grandmother who never let me
I've
use
known the family for
hardship as an
50
excuse
years.
to become
I saw him
sloppy.
leave the house that
By
night, and I can
38,
assure you,
I was a
he was
senior
alone.
prosecutor running a
prescription was
violent
clear.
crimes unit.
I filled it
My
according
mother
to the
still had
letter,
not met my
just as I
son.
have for the past 20 years.
19 years. is a long
Your Honor,
time
we
to
are
be
submitting the
erased
original letter and the
still
doctor's
share
competency
blood.
evaluation.
In that time,
They will be entered
Celeste
into
and
evidence.
Raymond did not call when
He
Noah
knows
took
what
his
he did.
first steps. They
He
did not
stole
call when he won a
everything from us.
scholarship to a summer robotics camp. They did not
Fluence.
call when
The
I
court
made
finds
the
the
local
decedent's
paper
final will,
after a
dated January
conviction
15th, to be
that
invalid
took
due to
14
undue
months
influence.
to build.
The estate will...
Julian married, divorced, started a fitness studio, lost it, and started calling. Himself an entrepreneur online. I saw the pictures sometimes because relatives forget who can still see what they post. My parents stood smiling at his ribbon cuttings, his second chances, his bad investments dressed up as brave risks. My son existed in a different universe, one they never visited.
You know, this reminds me of the stew your
Evelyn
mother
did.
used to make.
She
always
came to
added a
every
pinch of thyme.
graduation,
It's the same recipe,
every
Mabel.
school
I'm glad you
concert,
like it.
every awkward teenage milestone where Noah acted like he did not care and then checked the crowd until he saw her grey bun and raised hand. She never told him bitter stories about the people
really
who
need to
stayed
talk about
away.
this.
She
Please don't
simply
shut us
showed up
out.
so consistently that he learned the shape of family from attendance, not speeches. I thought the silence had become permanent. I even made peace with it, the kind of peace that forms around a scar when you stop pressing it. Then Evelyn's heart began failing. She refused to leave the farmhouse until she had to. And even then, she made the hospice nurse move her chair so she could see the maple tree through the window. 2 days before she died, she took my hand and squeezed the brass key into my palm again. "Don't lose this," she said. "It opens more than you think." Time equals, quote, 0.45 seconds. Quote slash, greater than I thought she meant memory. I thought dying people spoke in poetry because
This is
the
yours
plain
now, Marin.
things were too hard.
You keep it safe.
I was wrong.
I promise I will,
Evelyn, as usual, had been literal. The attorney's office was above a pharmacy in Briar County, with a carpet that smelled faintly of dust and lemon cleaner. Mr. Alden Pike had represented Evelyn for 31 years, and he looked exactly like a man who kept every receipt since 1978. He slid
He
a
left
blue
specific
binder
instructions
across
regarding
the desk
this.
And this key,
said,
what does it open?
"Your
The safety
grandmother
deposit
was
box
precise."
mentioned in Section 4.
I opened it and
As you can
found a
see,
living
both signatures
trust,
are here.
not a simple
It's
will.
finalized.
I recognize
Time
the
equals,
handwriting.
quote,
It's just as she wanted.
0.35 seconds. Quote slash, greater than the farmhouse, the 3 acres around it, the mineral rights she
The
had
settlement
never
figure
sold,
stands. We have
and
the
a liquid
documents right
account
here.
worth
No, tell them we won't wait past Friday.
$742,000 were all placed in trust years before her death. I was the sole beneficiary. Noah was contingent beneficiary. Celeste, Raymond, and Julian each received a token gift of $1 and 1 line, because they know why. Under that was a no contest clause so sharp it might as well have had teeth. Anyone who challenged the trust without probable cause would forfeit even the symbolic bequest and could be responsible for legal costs. I read the clause twice. Then I asked the only practical question. Did she expect them to fight? Alden looked at the closed door, then back at me. She expected them to smell money. Time equals, quote, 0.45 seconds, quote, slash greater than he said it sadly.
After everything we've done
Not
for this church,
cruelly.
they still managed to betray
She
us.
also expected you to be ready before they did. I left with certified copies. The brass key in my coat pocket,
Everything is
and a
clearly
feeling
laid
I
out here.
recognized from court.
And this key, what is this supposed
The
to prove?
moment before
that I
a
remember
bad
everything.
witness realizes the file is better than the story. The first message came from Julian 3 days later. "Hey,
This clause in
Stranger.
Section 4 dictates
We
the
should talk about
distribution.
Grandma's
Please sign here.
place.
What about the assets in the Delaware
used
Trust?
the word
Those are managed separately until the
Grandma
merger event.
after 19 years, like it had been waiting in his mouth. Then he called the house family property. That was how I knew the war had started. Julian tried charm first because charm had always been his cheapest tool. He said the family had been through enough. He said grief made people act strangely. He said maybe we could avoid lawyers if everyone was fair. Fair meant I handed over the house and split the money into quarters.
This is the key evidence, Noah.
Because,
We
as
need to
he
tie
put
the
it,
timeline back to this
no
specific
one
entry.
person should control that much family
I have known the
history.
family for over
I
40
let
years.
him
And in all that
talk
time, I never
in
saw
my work.
any indication of what
The
they are
first
now
rule of
claiming.
interviewing
Yes,
is
I
to
signed
let
this
a person
affidavit on the
explain
date indicated.
themselves into
I
evidence.
can confirm the inventory
He did
values
not
listed
ask
here are
about
accurate
Noah.
based on my records.
He did not ask whether
Your
I
Honor,
was okay.
we present the handwritten
He
letter
asked
and the
whether the
attached
bank account
verified
was
competency
really as large
assessment
as
for the
people
court's
said.
review.
2 days later, Celeste called,
It was
and
him.
she used the mother voice,
He forged the
soft
will.
enough to make the blade feel accidental.
After
Marin,
careful consideration
honey,
of the evidence
your
presented, the last will and testament is hereby
grandmother was
deemed invalid.
old.
The estate will
She
be
was
distributed per the
lonely.
laws of intestacy.
You were around her so much. People will wonder. People. In my mother's vocabulary, people meant her. She told me $700,000 was too much for one daughter, especially a daughter who had chosen to leave.
This
She
porch is
said
going to last
chosen
for
like
years.
the porch had
We
been a
did good, Mom.
vacation. Time equals, quote, 0.35 seconds, quote, slash, greater than I said Evelyn had chosen to.
So this is the critical
temperature
section
in
you
her voice
mentioned.
dropped.
Yes, if
We
we
are
can
still
verify
your
this
parents.
detail, the rest falls into
It was
place.
the first time in 19 years she had used that claim as if it carried rights. I told her parent was a verb before it was a title, and I hung up before she could recover. That night I stood in my kitchen and watched Noah, now 19, build a sandwich at midnight, the way boys do. When they are technically men, but still hungry children in your house. I did not tell him yet. I told myself I was protecting him. Really, I was repeating the old mistake. Believing strength meant carrying the whole ugly thing alone. The legal papers arrived in a thick envelope 11 days after Evelyn's funeral. Julian had hired a probate litigator named Grant Voss, the kind of lawyer whose letters use gentle phrases for aggressive things. The petition challenged the trust on 2 grounds: lack of capacity and undue influence. According to my family, Evelyn had been confused, isolated, dependent on me, and unable
I know this
to
isn't what you
understand
planned,
the
but I'm keeping the
effect
baby.
of her documents.
This is my decision.
According to them, I had positioned myself near her in her old age and bent her wishes toward myself. I stood at my counter and read every line with the part of my brain that prosecutes fraud for a living and the part of my heart that still remembered a porch in November. It is strange to be accused of manipulating the only person who ever chose you freely. For a minute, I let it hurt. Then I put the petition in a folder and called Alden. He did not sound surprised. She knew, he said.
As requested, the
She
living
said if
trust
they
is fully
filed,
executed.
you would know where to look.
Hard copies are on page
I asked
7.
where. He said he could not tell me, because Evelyn had left instructions that made no sense to him. She wrote, Marin
I
has
understand the
carried
implications,
the answer
but we must
for
maintain
years.
appearances.
I looked at the brass
Raymond is
key on
handling
the
the
counter.
details on his end.
The ribbon was faded nearly grey-green, frayed at the knot. For 19 years, it had opened the front door at County Road 18. I had never tried it anywhere else, because keys become one thing in your mind. Door, safety, home. That night, for the first time, I wondered if Evelyn had been teaching me another rule. Sometimes the object that saves you has been in your pocket so long you stop feeling its weight. I drove to the farmhouse before sunrise. The county road was empty, the fields silver with frost, the porch exactly as tired as it had been the night Evelyn saved me. Inside, the house held its breath. I went to the roll-top desk where she
I
had
just
paid
don't know how I
bills,
can face the
written
family after this.
birthday
It hurts
cards,
too much.
and hidden peppermints
Oh,
for
Celeste,
Noah
we are so
in
sorry.
the bottom pigeonhole. There were 6 drawers, 5 opened. Time equals, quote, 0.35 seconds.
You still wear that
Quote
ridiculous
slash
key.
greater
It reminds
than
me
the
of what I
sixth.
lost.
The deepest
Now,
one on the
about the
right
property on Route 9.
had always been locked. I had never asked why, because Evelyn believed privacy was a fence, and good people did not climb fences
As you can see in
unless
Section
invited.
4, the assets are
I
held in
slid the
trust
brass
until
key
Noah reaches the age
into
of
the little
25.
lock.
And this is irrevocable,
It turned
correct?
smoothly, like it had been exercised every day. Inside was a fireproof folio, grey, flat, and labelled in Evelyn's handwriting for Marin when they... Say I didn't know my own mind. My knees went soft before I even opened it. Inside were tabs: doctor, witnesses, independent counsel, letter, execution copy, no contest support. It was not a pile of sentimental scraps. It was a defense file. The doctor's letter was dated the
I watched
same
them
week
closely
the
over
trust
the
was
years.
signed.
On the night in
Stating
question,
that
what I
Evelyn
saw
Calder
contradicts
was
his
alert,
statement entirely.
oriented,
I can confirm that
competent,
the signature on the
and
directive
fully
matches the one we
capable
have
of
on
managing
file.
financial
The
and
medication
legal
was dispensed
decisions.
as instructed.
There were signed
Your Honor,
statements from Mabel
this
Anson,
is the doctor's
the
assessment
neighbour
confirming
who had brought
competency,
Evelyn
and the handwritten
tomatoes
wishes of Miss
every
Calder.
August, and Mr.
He
Terence
forged the
Vale,
will.
the
He
pharmacist
cannot inherit
downstairs from
everything.
Alden's office. Neither had any interest in the trust.
The court sustains the objection.
Time equals,
the codicil
quote,
disinheriting the Calder family is
0.35
valid.
seconds,
The estate
quote,
will pass to the respondent's
slash
trust.
greater than both had witnessed the signing. There was a memo from an independent estate attorney Evelyn had hired specifically so no one could accuse me or Alden of steering her. And there was a handwritten letter, 3 pages long, that began, Marin, if you are reading this, they finally came for what they ignored while I was alive. I sat at the desk and read the letter while the house
It means a
slowly
lot that you both
filled
came
with
tonight.
morning. Evelyn did
wouldn't
not
miss it,
write
son.
like a woman fading.
Your mother
She
raised you
wrote
right.
like a woman sharpening a knife with perfect manners. She explained why she had left everything to me, because I had been the one who came when the pipes froze, the one who drove her to appointments, the one who never asked what the farmhouse would be worth, the one who built a life. After everyone else had treated my life like a warning label, she wrote that Celeste had loved appearances more than people, that Raymond had mistaken passivity for peace, that Julian had learned early how to spend money he had not earned. She wrote that leaving them token gifts was not cruelty but evidence, proof that she had considered them and deliberately chosen otherwise. Then came the line that made me put my hand over my mouth. The key opens more than my front door. Marin, it always has. It opened a safe place when you were 19. It opens the drawer now. Let it remind you that doors are not the only things families try to lock. I cried then. Not loudly, not beautifully, just enough to fog my glasses and make the ink swim. Afterward, I did what I do when grief turns into work. I copied everything. I scanned every page. I called Alden, then I called Noah. When my son answered, I told him the truth I had protected him from for too long. I told him about the ultimatum, the porch, the trust contest, the letter,
Miss Calder,
the key.
it's good to see you again under
He
the
listened
circumstances.
quietly.
Please have a seat.
Then
Thank
he
you,
said,
Mr. Pike.
Mom,
Shall we review the
I am
documents?
It's all settled
driving
now, Marin.
home.
Your mother
I said
made
he
her
had
wishes clear
class.
regarding the trust and
He
the key.
said,
Understood.
great grand
I'll
built
take it
a
from here,
case.
Alden.
You don't get to carry it alone. That was when I realized Evelyn's final gift was not only proof, it was permission to
Yes,
stop
I'm listening.
confusing
No,
solitude
that simply won't
with
do.
strength.
We expect the funds
While we
transferred
built
by
the legal
Tuesday,
response,
or we take further action.
Celeste built a story in Briar County. She had always understood small town weather. Say a thing at the church kitchen, repeat it at the grocery store, sigh over it at the salon, and by Friday people remember hearing it from somewhere reliable. In her version, I had abandoned my family at 19, kept her grandson away, isolated Evelyn near the end, and returned only when there was money to claim. Time equals, quote, 0.35 seconds, quote, slash greater than the boy I had refused to give up became in her story. The reason she had suffered, the porch became my rebellion. The 19 years of silence became a sad misunderstanding. Julian posted vague lines
It's simply
online
unbearable.
about vultures who
After
circle
everything
when
we
elders
built,
die.
To have
People
it crumble
commented
like
with
this.
hearts. I drafted responses in my head. Entire closing arguments made of dates, receipts, and names.
You think you can just sit
Then
there,
I deleted them
perfectly
before
calm,
typing a word
after
because
everything
Evelyn's
you've done?
voice was in my head. Truth does
This is
not
the letter
need a
she sent
megaphone.
right before she disappeared.
It needs a venue.
And this is the
Social
key she
media
mentioned.
was Celeste's venue. The courtroom would
This
be
clause
mine.
dictates the distribution
Still,
of the assets held in
one
trust,
night,
contingent
I agreed
upon the
to
terms
meet
we
her at a
discussed.
diner off
It's quite
Route
standard for
9
an arrangement like
because
this.
part of me wanted to know whether there was a human reason under all that cruelty. There was, she told me, without looking at me, that when she was 17, her parents had forced
This
her to
courtroom
give
is
up a baby
magnificent.
girl
Almost
at a
as grand as
church-run
the
home
estate.
2 counties
Try to contain
over.
yourself, Julian.
She had
we must
never
look
held the
respectful.
child after birth. She had spent her life telling herself obedience had saved her. Then I had refused to obey, and my refusal made her sacrifice look less like virtue and more like fear. For one breath.
I've known the family for
I
over
felt
40
pity.
years, and I can
Then
tell
she
you
raised her
that
eyes
is
and
not
said,
how it happened.
So you owe me
I
something
swear it.
for what I lost.
Based on my professional
The pity
assessment at the time,
closed.
the patient
A
was
wound
fully
does
aware
not
of the
become a
implications.
deed to someone else's
I can confirm
house.
that under oath.
The week before
We
the
present
hearing,
herewith, Your Honor, the
our
notarized
dining
letter from
table
Miss
became
Calder
a
and the affirming
trial
assessment
table.
of her competency
Noah
as
labeled
requested by the
exhibits
court.
in neat block letters.
He is lying.
Alden's co-counsel,
He
a
manipulated
trust
everything.
specialist named Priya Shah, walked us
Therefore,
through
the court finds in favor of the
cause
petitioner.
problem.
The last will and
The no
testament dated
contest
January
clause
15th is
would not
hereby
punish
validated,
them,
and the previous
merely
instrument
for
is deemed
asking
null and void.
questions. Courts do not like traps that silence legitimate concerns. But with a doctor's letter, independent.
I didn't think I'd still have this
Witnesses,
key after all these years.
Independent counsel,
It's
and
proof we made it
Evelyn's
through.
own clear letter. Their claim had no foundation beyond wanting what they did not receive. That mattered. If the judge found no reasonable basis, they could lose the token gifts and be ordered to pay part of the defense costs.
You've
Julian,
built something special here, Marin.
I later
Your
learned,
mother would be proud.
had already
It's a
told
family.
people he would use his share to restart another business. Celeste had told a cousin the farmhouse needed a real family in it again. Raymond had said nothing, which was his favorite form of consent. I did not tell them who I was now. I did not mention that Grant Voss had seen me in court years earlier when I prosecuted a mortgage fraud case where he represented a witness. I wanted their picture of me to remain old, poor, frightened, and easier to bully. And being underestimated is dangerous only when you still want approval. When you no longer need it, it becomes cover. I chose a navy suit for the hearing, plain and fitted. I put the brass key in the inner pocket of my jacket. Noah pressed my hand before we left the farmhouse and said, "Great Gran would have liked this." I asked what. He said, "All these people who thought you were alone showing up to find out you never were." That was the first time I smiled that morning. Briar County Probate Court had pale walls, wooden benches, and the kind of quiet that makes every paper sound important. Celeste, Raymond, and Julian arrived together. My mother wore pearls and a black coat more appropriate for a funeral she had not earned. Raymond looked smaller than memory, his tie too tight. Julian wore a suit that still had the sleeve tag tucked under one cuff. Time equals, quote, 0.35 seconds, quote, / greater. Then they looked at me across the aisle and smiled. Not kindly.
I stand by what I saw.
Victoriously.
He was a good
Grant
father,
Voss came in
despite
last,
what the others are saying.
briefcase in one hand,
It's the truth, so
phone
help me
in the
God.
other. Reading as he walked, he reached their table, looked up, saw me, and stopped so abruptly, Julian turned around. I watched recognition hit him. Voss had stood opposite me in a pre-trial hearing. 6 years earlier, and lost a suppression motion after I spent 40 minutes taking apart his timeline.
You know, this reminds me of the stew your mother used
He
to
knew
make.
exactly
She always
who I
added a
was.
pinch of thyme.
To his
It's
credit,
the same recipe, Mabel.
he did not
I'm glad you
perform
like
surprise. He set down his briefcase, inclined his head, and said, "Good morning, Counselor Calder." The word counselor moved through my family like a crack across ice. Julian's
We
smile
really need to talk about this.
flickered.
Please don't shut us
Celeste
out.
leaned toward Voss and whispered too loudly. "What did he call her?" I said, "Good morning, Mr. Voss," and opened my folio. That was all. No speech, no announcement. The old version of me, the pregnant girl on the porch, died one more quiet death in that room. They had come prepared to fight a memory. Instead, they found a prosecutor, a trust file, a doctor's letter, 2 witnesses, a son at my shoulder, and a dead woman who had been underestimated by every single one of them. The judge took the bench. Grant Voss looked down at his papers with the expression of a man realizing his clients had sold him a story and called it a case. The hearing did not become dramatic immediately. Real legal destruction rarely does. Voss argued capacity and undue influence in careful language, because careful language was all he had. He suggested Evelyn had been elderly, dependent, emotionally attached to me.
This is the key
and
evidence,
perhaps
Noah.
too isolated to
We need to tie the
exercise
timeline back to this
independent
specific
judgment.
entry.
Then Priya stood and answered
I have known
with
the
paper.
family for over 40
The
years, and in
trust
all
had
that
been
time, I
executed
never
4
saw any
years
indication
before
of what they are
Evelyn's
now
death.
claiming.
The physician's
Yes, I signed
letter
this affidavit on the date
confirmed
indicated.
competence.
I can confirm
The
the inventory
independent
values
attorney's
listed here are
memo
accurate based on my
confirmed
records.
that Evelyn met with
Your
counsel
Honor,
alone
we present the handwritten
and
letter and the
explained her
attached
choices
verified competency
without prompting.
assessment for the court's review.
Mabel Anson testified first, wearing
It
a
was
blue
him.
dress and the kind of
He
shoes
forged
women
the will.
reserve for church and war. She said Evelyn had been
After
sharp
careful
enough to
consideration of the
scold
evidence
me for
presented, the last will and testament is
pruning
hereby deemed
tomatoes
invalid.
wrong
The estate will be
on
distributed
the
per
day
the laws
of
of
the
intestacy.
signing. The pharmacist, Terence Vale, testified next and remembered Evelyn correcting a date on the first page before anyone else noticed it. Then Priya entered Evelyn's letter. The courtroom was very
I understand
still
the implications,
while the judge
but we
read
must
the first
maintain
page.
appearances.
Celeste stared
Raymond
straight
is handling
ahead.
the details on
Raymond
his end.
stared at his hands. Julian whispered something to Voss, and Voss did not answer. When the no contest clause came up, Priya did not raise her voice. She simply asked the court to find that the petition had been filed without probable cause and to enforce the clause as written. That was when Celeste stood up. She said Evelyn had been confused. She said I had poisoned everyone against her. So she said I had always thought I was better than the family. The judge told her to sit down. Celeste kept going. She said, I lost a child once, and she used hers to punish me. The room changed, not because the sentence helped her, because it revealed her. Voss closed his eyes for half a second. Time equals, quote, 0.35 seconds, quote, slash, greater than I did nothing. When the other side is proving your case, the kindest thing is to let them finish. The judge ruled from the bench. The trust was valid. Evelyn Calder had capacity. There was no evidence of undue influence.
You think you can just sit there?
There was
Perfectly
overwhelming
calm
evidence of independence,
after everything you've done.
intention, and legal planning.
This is the letter
The
she sent right
petition
before
was
she disappeared.
dismissed. Then came
And
the
this is the
part
key
my
she
family
mentioned.
had not believed could touch them.
This
The
clause
court
dictates
found
the distribution of the assets held in
challenge
trust,
lacked
contingent upon
probable
the terms we
cause in light of
discussed.
the documents
It's quite
available
standard for an arrangement like
and
this.
the absence of any meaningful contradictory evidence. The no contest clause was enforced. The token bequests vanished. More importantly, the court awarded a portion of defense costs against Celeste,
This courtroom is
Raymond,
magnificent,
and Julian.
almost as grand as the
They
estate.
had reached for a
Try to
house,
contain yourself, Julian.
3 acres,
We must look respectful.
and $742,000. Time equals, quote, 0.35 seconds, quote, slash, greater than. They walked out owing money for failing to take it. Julian stood up so fast, his chair hit the bench
I've known the
behind
family
him.
for over 40
Raymond
years,
put a
and I
hand
can
on his
tell you,
shoulder
that
and
is
got
not
shrugged
how it
off.
happened.
Celeste
I swear
sat
it.
very still.
He knows
Pearls
what he did.
rising and falling with each
He stole
breath.
everything
The
from
performance
us.
finally out of costumes. I
Influence.
gathered my file.
The court finds the decedent's
Noah
final
stood
will,
beside me.
dated January
As we
15th, to be
passed,
invalid due to undue
the
influence.
petitioner's table.
The estate will...
Celeste reached for my sleeve and said, "We are still your family." I stepped back before her fingers touched me. Family came for me on a porch 19 years ago. I said, "You came for the account balance." For once. Raymond looked directly at me. His mouth moved like an apology might finally appear. Then he looked at Celeste and went silent again. That was his last answer.
You know, this reminds
And it
me of
was
the
the
stew your
only
mother used
one
to
I
make.
needed.
She always added a pinch
In
of
the
thyme.
hallway,
It's the same
the
recipe,
brass
Mabel.
key
I'm
knocked
glad you
lightly
like it.
against my ribs when I breathed. I had thought it was a symbol of being saved, standing there outside the courtroom. I understood it was also a boundary. A key lets some people in. It keeps others out.
The
Both
settlement figure
things can be
stands.
love.
We have the documents right here.
A year has passed
No,
since the
tell them we
hearing.
won't wait past Friday.
No appeal was filed. Grant Voss. I heard through the quiet professional channels lawyers pretend not to have. Told my family an appeal would only make the debt deeper. Julian's next business never opened. Raymond retired earlier than planned. Celeste stopped telling the church kitchen version when people began asking why two independent witnesses and a doctor disagreed with her. I did not correct the town.
I have known the
record did
family
that
for over
without me.
40 years,
Noah
and in
and I
all that
repaired the
time, I
farmhouse
never saw
porch in
any
August.
indication of what they
We
are now
sanded the
claiming.
railings,
Yes, I
painted
signed this
the front
affidavit on the
door
date
a
indicated.
deep green,
I can confirm the
and
inventory
hung the
values
brass
listed here
key
are accurate
in a
based
little
on my
frame
records.
by the entry.
Your Honor, we present the
Ribbon
handwritten
and
letter
all,
and the attached
it is
verified
not there
competency
because I need to
assessment for
use
the
it
court's
anymore.
review.
The locks have been changed. It is
It
there
was
because
him.
every home should remember
He
who kept the
forged the
door
will.
open when the world tried to close it.
After
Mabel
careful
comes for
consideration
supper
of the
on
evidence
Thursdays.
presented, the last will and
Terrence
testament is
drops
hereby
off
deemed
too many
invalid.
tomatoes
The estate
in
will be
summer.
distributed per the
Noah
laws of
brings friends
intestacy.
from college who sprawl on the porch like they have known it forever. Sometimes I stand in the hallway at night and smell cedar polish and lavender and think of Evelyn saying, "Use it whenever the world shuts theirs." I
This
used
porch
it.
is gonna last for
Then
years.
I learned to shut
We did
my
good,
own.
Mom.
If you are listening to this and someone has called you cruel for protecting what saved you, hear me clearly. Kindness is not weakness, and boundaries are not betrayal. Blood may put names on a tree, but loyalty
I
decides
understand the
which
implications,
branches
but we
still
must
give
maintain
shade.
appearances.
My
Raymond
mother
is
gave
handling
me
the
an
details on
ultimatum
his
at
end.
19. My grandmother gave me a key. One was meant to end my life. The other built it. The strangest part is not that they lost. It is that once the door closed behind them, the air inside my life became ordinary. No thunder, no movie music, no grand apology delivered in the rain, just quiet mornings, court calendars, grocery lists, and a son who laughs too loudly in the kitchen. Healing, I learned, is sometimes just the absence of people who keep asking you to bleed for them. I still prosecute cases, and I still sit across from people who believe a confident story can erase a document. Every time I think of
I
Evelyn,
just don't know how I can
I
face
think
the
of
family
Celeste
after
with
this.
her
It hurts too
pearls,
much.
Julian with his
Oh,
smirk,
Celeste, we are so
Raymond
sorry.
with his silence, and that little drawer opening under my hand. The truth did not become powerful because I shouted it.
You still wear that
It
ridiculous
became
key.
powerful
It reminds me of
because
what I
someone
lost.
wise enough to see
Now,
the future
about the property on
had
Route 9.
signed it, dated it, witnessed it, and left it where love knew I would eventually look. That became the final
As you can see
freedom.
in Section 4,
Not
the
winning
assets
their
are held in
love,
trust until
but
Noah
no
reaches
longer
the age
needing
of
it to
25.
feel
And this is
real.
irrevocable, correct?
That's my story. One porch, one son, 19 years of silence, and one old woman's perfect file waiting in a locked drawer. If this reminded you of the person who opened a door for you when everyone else closed theirs, call them if you still can, and if someone needs permission to stop begging for a place at the wrong table, send this to them. Drop a comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next story.